and if you're out there on Zoom, welcome to you as well. So let's get to
Yeah,
rocking
the
and rolling.
Zoom folks should have gotten a quiz email from Laurie. And you're welcome to participate. I don't want to ignore you folks in Zoom land, but I've got a very ambitious group here that I have kind of herd these cats. Okay, before we start, I want to apologize for last week. One of my biggest concerns is watching the clock, and the clock got away from me because we had such great conversation. Plus, I threw in that extra Rolling Stones video that I forgot to go over the homework with you, which you should have received from Laurie. I'll go over the next homework sessions with you, but there are a lot of things I'm leaving out in this course. Like I'm not talking about the political scene that's going on, but I had links in the handout to 67, 68, 69, what was going on politically and so forth, if you're interested in context for that. Plus, I gave you a lot of links to stuff from Monterey Pop. One of the links that I'm going to give you today is one I just discovered. You're the first class to have the almost complete Woodstock soundtrack. Wow. Now, I have to tell you, I spent a lot of time. This is the first course that I put together for OSHA back in 2018. It was Woodstock at 49, and then it became Woodstock at 50. And I searched I scoured the internet for various performances because, first of all, not all of them were recorded. The Grateful Dead refused to be recorded because they were playing so poorly. They did not want it to get out. But there were a lot of folks with 8mm cameras or audio of various things. So now I have a link that you're going to get that is the most comprehensive of everything collected, including audio of the announcements without music being played. They've even got what was going on when people were supposed to be sleeping. And you can click on any, if you want to see the full Janis Joplin set, which I'd never seen before, 45 minutes, it's there. So these are going to be in the supplemental materials that I hand out. Any questions on what the supplemental stuff was that I gave you last week? Okay.
It came after the class.
She should have sent it during the class. I gave it to her during class, and it should have come out to you. Anyway, it's really for the geeks in the class. It's got some really technical stuff, but I know people have favorites. You want to hear Jimi Hendrix playing the Star Spangled Banner or whatever. The Jimi Hendrix set is really good. Okay, so let's talk about the pop quiz that I put together for you. I told you this is an interactive class. And we started Woodstock last week. I didn't intend to get this far down, but we're looking at my black and white photos from when I was there. But let's go over the quiz and we'll see what the collective wisdom of the group is. Or the collective ignorance. Now, this is unfair. I mean, if you've seen the movie, most of this stuff is in the original movie. There was an original movie, then a director's cut, and then a lot of stuff leaked out of stuff that fell on the cutting room floor. So let's start off with an easy one. Didn't take place in Woodstock. Where did it happen?
Bethel.
Bethel, New York. Where was it supposed to be before Bethel? They got kicked out.
Albany.
No. White Lake is the town in Bethel. White Lake is actually the town. Bethel is the community around it. It was in Wallkill. And do you remember the story of Wallkill? In fact, when you saw the flyer that I filled out to get my tickets, it actually gave directions to Wallkill. They hadn't printed up new brochures. The brochures were out, and it was like 2 or 3 weeks before the event. They got kicked out of Wallkill, and the reason they could do it in White Lake, Bethel, is they had the mayor, whatever, had a permit already approved for a large gathering. And it's interesting to note that after Woodstock, all over the United States, upstate New York, all over towns and communities were passing ordinances banning large gatherings. So it was very hard to get a concert. However, I found this in my trivia stuff. This is the ticket to the Powder Ridge Festival in Middlefield, Connecticut, July 31st, August 1 and 2, 1970. $20. So I had a ticket to go to the next Woodstock in Connecticut. It was canceled, but people showed up anyway. And then amateurs were playing their instruments. Yes, Dan?
There was a fairly good sized festival in Sedalia, Missouri in
Yeah.
1970 maybe. I can't remember.
I've heard people tell me about that.
After that one festival, I think Sedalia said no more.
No more.
It was, had a lot of big bands there.
Yeah.
I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's,
Sorry, I wasn't there. Was it supposed to be at the fair?
it was at the state fair.
Okay. Okay, what was the official title of the festival?
In our fair?
Music and Art Fair. Yeah, I told you last week that we expected to be doing crafts,
Yes.
playing pottery. Yes. The festival was held on the dairy farm of, you met him last week, Max Yasker, right. According to official police reports, there were both deaths and births during this festival. True or false? True. 2 deaths, 3 births. One of the deaths was an accidental, a young man was sleeping in the field and a tractor ran over. And I think the other one was an overdose, but there was 3 babies born at Woodstock over the 3 days. What was the theme of the festival? 3 days of peace and music. There, right there. Right there. 3 days of peace and music.
That t-shirt was so.
No cheat, that's cribbing. The 3 days of peace and music. This is a hard one. I don't think you would get this one, but what was the official estimated cost of the festival?
I see.
2.4.
2.4.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you how it came about. And we'll talk about this a little more. There were a couple of guys, Cornfield and I forget the other one's name, who had a bunch of money, and they put an ad in papers like the Village Voice and so forth, saying 2 entrepreneurs want to invest in a significant event. It was weirdly worded that they had money they wanted to put into an event. And Michael Lang answered it. You'll see Michael Lang several times in this. I'm not a fan of Michael Lang. He was kind of not an honest guy. But anyway, he talked them into funding the event, and then they got the permit and moved forward and so forth. But it got to the point, this is a significant change that happened at Woodstock. Before Woodstock, artists worked through managers or agents, and the agents, of course, took a cut. Well, when Woodstock started falling apart, the groups went to these entrepreneurs and said, cash, 15,000, 20,000, whatever the amount was, cash before we go on. They held the players hostage. Well, that was the end of Bill Graham and the other. Bill Graham, by the way, had acts at Woodstock. That was the end of agents taking the big cut and more of the groups negotiating their own stuff. That's one of the things that came out of Woodstock. And the guys, Cornfield and so forth, wrote the checks. They knew they were taking a bath, and they lost their shirts. Okay, Hugh Romney is better known as Wavy Gravy. And you'll see him in some clips. The commune that serviced Woodstock patrons was affectionately known as Garden. Is actually the name of Yasker's farm. So when Joni Mitchell sings, I want to find my way back to the garden.
That song, it's totally guess.
Going way back to the garden, that's what the name of the farm. No, the commune that serviced, they were lifesavers. They talked people out of bad trips. They fed them.
Heard this. I
Ooh.
know I've heard it. I can't remember.
You're gonna go,
I know.
hog farmers.
The hog farm.
The hog farmers. Wavy Gravy was a part of that. And there's an interesting backstory with the hog farmers. They were from New Mexico, Southwest somewhere, living out in the country. And they were recruited to come to talk people down from bad trips and to provide services. And it's interesting, they were all hippie dropouts. They were, no radio, no television, and they'd never been in an airplane before. And they were flown in a private plane from wherever it was in southwestern United States to New York and then to Woodstock. So it was quite an experience. There's a little sub story about how they interacted with everyone, and they were absolute lifesavers. Yeah. Okay. Complete the stage announcement. What we have in mind is breakfast in bed for
500,000? 400,000.
400,000. And who said it?
I did, but it was just.
Who said it in the movie? Or
Who said it?
who said what we have in mind is breakfast in bed for 400,000? Yes, Wavy Gravy. Right. What performer became famous for encouraging the crowd to recite the following line? Give me an F.
Yeah.
And what does the F stand for?
Well, he goes on.
Well, it depends. Give me an F is for fuck, but it's also for fish. So when he had to be careful with being recorded, it was give me an F for FISH. But in smaller settings without cameras, it was FUCK. But Country Joe and the Fish was the name of the group. And an interesting factoid, Country Joe appeared twice. First on the Friday alone, and then Sunday, Saturday or Sunday with Country Joe and the Fish. So he's on the bill twice.
Did you see him?
Did I see him?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I was too stoned. I have to tell you, it was Friday. I think I've told you the story. We got there. We were at 3:00 in the afternoon. By now, the acid's kicking in. So I remember Richie Havens leading us off, and you're going to watch Richie Havens do one of the numbers. And then I don't remember the rest of them until we got to Joan Baez at 4 a.m. I was just out of it, but it was very pleasant. Produced and directed Woodstock movie. Nope.
Michael Wadley.
Michael Wadley was the producer. But here's a factoid. A very young Martin Scorsese was there as an editor. He was in a control booth before Mean Streets, before anything. Yeah. And this week's Time magazine has a long interview with Martin Scorsese in his latest film. Yeah. So Michael Wadley produced and directed the movie. And directing is, you'll see how many cameras they had and how many hours they shot, whatever. Directing was mostly, go get this groove, do that, go watch the people slide in the mud. It was just capturing footage. And then the directing was really the editing in the room. How much for a 3-day ticket? I've already told you that. $18, right? Richie Havens opened the show and played for how long? 2 hours. And they kept sending him back out there because the stage wasn't ready with the next group. And one of the things that I found out from my research that I didn't notice at the time was that almost all of the acts for Friday afternoon and into the evening were singer-songwriters with just a guitar. So you didn't have to bring the drums and the whole setup. Later on, by the evening, they'd flown in stuff, and then they could do the more elaborate stage thing. Really interesting. Who recited the famous line, "The New York threw his clothes, man"? Isn't that far off? Arlo Guthrie, and he was full of shit because it wasn't closed. It wasn't closed. But no, not the throughway. It was once you got off the ramps, but the throughway was not closed during that. That's Interstate 90.
Yeah, no, Stone is closed.
Right. There you go. Yeah. What's the difference?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, and Arnold Guthrie did this whole routine with all this hippie talk. I was rapping with the fuzz, man, and he was into this weird. Come on, what are you doing? Uh, okay, Abby Hoffman was the leader of the Yippies. What does Yippie stand for?
International. Youth instigators?
Nope,
Young Industrial Party.
nope. Don't have much left.
I know. Youth International Party?
Yeah, Youth International Party. And the famous scene that's not in the movie that was documented was Abby Hoffman tried to seize the microphone from Pete Townsend and wanted to talk about not Jon Stewart, whatever. There was a guy who was in jail for protesting the war or whatever. And Pete Townsend threw Abby Hoffman off the stage. Remember, the stage is like this.
Oh, it wasn't Joan Baez's husband, was it?
He was in jail.
Is that who he was talking about?
No, because he had a different name. This was more of an activist. Joan Baez's husband was a pacifist, and he was in jail for not signing for the draft. David was his name.
Yes.
And she mentioned him saying, David's doing fine. She was pregnant at the time when she was saying, yeah. Okay. Well, anybody get them all right? Oh, it's kind of fun. And I wanted to tell those stories about the various events, and this is a good way to do it. Also, when we have the break, I've got some Woodstock junk here. This is a flyer from the Lawrence Arts Center from a couple of years ago. Photographs of the '69 Woodstock Festival. None of my photos are in there, but it was an interesting. They had a reception and so on and so forth. A couple of other things about Woodstock. This is from the Sunday New York Times, May 20th, 2018. People want to know what's going on at Woodstock. There is a facility called the Bethel Woods Center for the Arts. And this is the schedule for the summer of the groups that are playing. This is right on the site where the thing was held. Yeah, Steely Dan, Leonard Skinner, so on and so forth. I thought that was interesting that it's still active. This is interesting. This is one of the handouts that was passed out at Woodstock. I don't know, someone had probably mimeograph. Yeah, I don't think it was a photocopy, it was a mimeograph machine. And they passed these out. Welcome to Hit City. We are now in the third largest city in New York. Like New York City, basic services break down. And it's got advice of water, try to boil it, all drinking water. Use prepared veggies, food is being airlifted. Hints, organize your own camping area, and so on. And on the 50th anniversary, I was interviewed by the Lawrence Journal World,
Oh, cool.
and the article was in the handout if you want to read it. It's a lot of what you already know. It's really sad. They interviewed me and this other guy, and he got that much, and I got all the fun in. But I had the pictures and all to share with them. So they did that. This is a Woodstock at 50 for the New York Times special. And it's got a lot of pictures on the back. And this is a special report from Rolling Stone. It's got all the articles and pictures. So during the break, if you want to look at any of the stuff, you're welcome to do that. Okay. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So we were, by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we were settled in, and we had brought our own food and drink. There was a little shower that came up, but overall it was really, really hot. I was wearing a cutoff dungarees, and I think that was it. No shirt, and it was very, very hot. The rain felt a little good. They were constantly telling people, get down from the towers. And these are a couple of bikers who were sitting next to us, and they made a blunt, which is a large marijuana joint, and passed it around. We never even got to smoke our own stuff. We were smoking everybody else's. It was very, very generous. They were doing yoga exercises. There were also Hare Krishna people walking around passing out, I don't know, not water, something. The woman on the right's my first wife, and my friend Butch and Jan. Butch and I met in junior high school. We were really go way back as friends. And this was the only shot night that came out decently for me. The sound system, it's important to mention this because one of the issues at Altamont was they used the racetrack sound system, which means that after you're about 500 feet away, you can't hear anything. As I told you, this is in a natural bowl, so our line of sight was pretty good. We could see the stage. But Chip Monk, who was the announcer, Monck,
Yeah.
2 words. That's his name. He was an announcer. You can hear his voice. He is actually the sound engineer that designed this custom sound system. It was fabulous. It was really fabulous. You could hear for a long, long way, very crisp, very clear, at least until the rain came, and then it started short-circuiting. And that's what I looked like at Woodstock. I'm not proud of that, but no, this is in upstate New York. I wanted a picture of Downsville on Route 30. But I have to tell you, I think I told you I was a college administrator at the time, and they had a dress code. You couldn't have facial hair at all. So you can't see it, but I've got mutton chops that are creeping down. And when I got back to Massachusetts, to Boston, I quit the administrator job at the college and got a job in a suburban school district outside of Boston on the South Shore. And as I was being interviewed by the superintendent, one of the science teachers came in and he's got a full beard, mustache, whatever. I don't care what the salary is, I'm taking it. And that Christmas break, that 1969 Christmas break, is the last time I saw my face. I had technology. I taught 3 years at a technical school in Ohio while I was getting my bachelor's. Then I was an administrator at the Wentworth Institute of Technology in Boston. I was an admissions counselor. I worked that for a year, hated it. And then I got back into teaching technology at a school district. And that's where I got involved in the teachers union, which got me to come to Kansas to work for the teachers union. So anyway, that's my story at that time, and I'm sticking with it. Whoops, I wanted to. Oh, that's okay. Hey, cursor, where are you? There you go. Okay, this is me right here. No, this is after I left. This is the next day. This is Saturday. That's how it was set up. So people are in the bowl, and then back here is where the helicopters could land and the performance could come and so forth. And you see this stuff up at the top. This is the arts and crafts area where we thought we were going to be throwing clay pots and stuff. But that's an aerial view. And here's Richie Havens. This is his last song. He, as I said, they kept him on the stage. They wanted him to keep going, and he made up this song as he came. So this is the opening of the show. Come on. Right, this is that last part. A lot of those scenes were from Taking Woodstock, a drama that came out in 2009. I highly recommend it. It's a lot of it is factual about lying about the permit and the characters that are in it. Eugene Levy played Max Gadsby, if you didn't notice that. But anyway, it's a drama, and I think it's available free on Canopy. Do you get Canopy? KANOPY. Get it through your library card. Yeah, I've got it through the Lawrence Library. You can get it through KU, whatever. And I love Canopy because they have a lot of stuff that's free, no advertisements. You watch it through, pause it, come back the next night. Okay. So this is going to be the last thing on Woodstock. It's a memory, and I sort of disagree with this guy. I'm not real keen on his analysis. I might not do the whole thing, but this is looking back 50 years later.
The original Woodstock Festival is a series of accidents and disasters that turn into something of a miracle. 4 guys, 2 put up the money, 2 were the hippies in upstate who knew what they were doing, sort of. They wanted to stage a perfect and bucolic festival in a pastoral setting, and there was your second clue. Great intention. They never finished putting up the fences. They barely finished building the stage. They didn't have enough food. They had to get the army, hippies, had to get help from the army to fly in medical supplies and food and other things they needed. It was a complete disaster. It rained. Also, there were too many people. So many people that they had a choice between pandemonium or saying, just come, it doesn't matter whether you have a ticket, it's a free festival now. A complete disaster. And yet, also a miracle. 300,000, 400,000 people come together and coexist for 3 days. And they managed to make it work. There are a lot of different ways of looking at 1969. Right then, in the space of 4 weeks, man walked on the moon, there was a Woodstock Festival, the Manson family killed a bunch of people out in Los Angeles. Which one do you want to believe describes America in 1969? Because you can pick any of them. But if you pick Woodstock, you're buying into a wonderful baby boomer myth about love and peace and music. What was great about Woodstock? It was an alternate universe. Social theorists call this a temporary autonomous zone. It's a theory in anarchist political theory that you can put people together and let them make their own rules and it will work. They create a temporary autonomous zone. They rule themselves. That's what happened in Woodstock. There were streets. They made up streets. There was a barter system. There was commerce. You could buy and sell things besides drugs, but drugs. You could buy tie-dye shirts. You could buy all sorts of hippie things. A lot of the summer concert experience for kids right now revolves around festivals. It doesn't necessarily revolve around Woodstock. There's a little bit of the spirit of Woodstock, just a little bit of incense in the corner. Here's the thing people don't understand about Woodstock is it was free. Tickets were supposed to cost $18 for 3 days. It's about $125 in 2019 money. Coachella, by the way, costs at least three times that. But they didn't end up taking the tickets. They didn't end up making money. And that set the expectation among fans that festivals should be free. Festivals struggled after Woodstock to actually have tickets and not be charged as capitalist pigs ripping off the culture. The whole idea that Woodstock was about 3 days of love, peace, and music, that is great marketing. That's great branding. And don't think those guys didn't know it. The love and peace, that's an enduring way of thinking of that festival. That was on the poster they printed up when they thought they were going to make money off of the music. And they've restaged it. There was a Woodstock 94. There was a Woodstock 99. A disaster. Is there a Woodstock 2019? There is not. In an amazing replay of history, it was a complete disaster. It got kicked off of its original festival site. It wasn't going to happen. Everyone was trying to shut it down. They didn't believe, and then it didn't happen. And that's the amazing thing, is that it's 50 years later, and some of these same people thought they could pull it off again the same way, by the seat of their pants, without getting it all done 6 months or a year earlier.
More than 350,000 people came looking for peace and music. Many said they learned a lot about themselves and learned a lot about getting along together and priorities. And for most, that alone makes it all worthwhile.
It became pretty instantly the way the generation wanted to think about itself. It wanted to think of itself as the Woodstock Nation, right? The idea of it instantly was bigger than the thing itself. Instantly was more enduring than the thing itself. It was the symbol as much as anything that happened. And what happened that was remarkable was that people got to put some principles into action. And for 3 days, by mutual agreement, inside the festival site, and with some of the authorities or the townspeople outside the festival site, it worked. That's the miracle of it. That's why we still care. It was a social experiment, and the experiment worked. And then
it didn't. Discuss. What do you think? Agree with them? Disagree with them?
Yeah, you can't make it happen.
But do you agree with that? People mythologized it and internalized some of the attitudes. Because I can tell you personally, I internalized a whole lot of it. You know, I went away with a fond memory of getting along, and in subtle ways, I worked for peace. I worked for bringing people together. I'm a mediator and a facilitator, trained mediator and facilitator, and bringing people together. It's been a part of my life. And I won't say it was like a baptism kind of thing, but my chosen takeaway from Woodstock is that more people came away with good feeling about it than didn't.
Well, I think back and to that period of time, and what I remember is that vividly is that in 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated, and then Bobby Kennedy was assassinated.
Yep.
And there were other horrible things that had happened on the national stage. Of course, Vietnam was raging. Guys were getting drafted, and this was like a little. This was the little dreamland.
Yeah, it was an escape. Yeah.
It was an escape, and because my memory of the late '60s, is that it was very chaotic, very disturbing, and this had to have been an escape for those who were there.
So I didn't look at it as an escape. It may have turned out that way, but I remember back then, a lot of us at that point in time wanted it to be that.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we were gonna make that happen,
right.
and this was what came out of that.
And that's cool. I'm just saying it happened in a very chaotic time in our history, and there was
Yeah, but I feel like there was a group of people that really, it was chaotic, and I think that was even more the reason that people wanted to come together.
yeah,
To have that sense of belonging and not to have so much chaos.
I agree.
But today, they don't have that same feeling that they need to come together and not have chaos.
How many people there that they were gonna be drafted?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the war.
Yeah.
Yeah, the war hung over everything.
The music was like an unstoppable force then in the late '60s, but it wasn't as commercialized as it is now. So I think it was the music just.
Well, this kind of
the top
music,
the
yeah.
line.
There was still pop music, so forth. When you get to my 1971 class, you'll see that pop music is still king, okay, and queen.
Well,
But so we have two perceptions here. One is the could have been, and the takeaway that people hope to continue that kind of thing, and then those who experienced it and maybe more of an individual transformation. I'm also an organizer, and it frustrates me when I like a demonstration or a march as much as anyone else, but then people go home and they forget that they didn't organize. and didn't focus. My recollection of the '60s with my hippie friends, we were all like-minded, and we go to Woodstock, and there's 400,000 like-minded people, attitude toward drugs, attitude toward the war, attitude toward the government, corporations, and so forth. But there was no organization. You know, I think of Occupy Wall Street, which came and went. Uh, you know, hashtag Me Too is still doing okay. But think of the various groups. I have a shirt from the Parkland kids, March for Our Lives. It was a big deal about 6 years ago. Where is it now? They had
I see that March for Our Lives, one just got elected to Congress, the
Right.
youngest congressional person at 27. So I think that it's happening. And so I think that all of these things, but you're right, the organizing, but I don't think people understand what it really takes to organize something.
exactly.
And someone who's
I
organizing,
know.
grand opening
Yep.
events and things, you think you have it all, and that's assuming everything goes as planned, but that it never goes as planned.
One thing that happened this was last week. Taylor Swift told kids to register to vote. The next day, 30,000 kids
Right.
registered.
Wow.
That's what you got to do.
You
Okay,
gotta get them out voting day, not just the register.
right.
That's another part of the
Well, the
process.
Swifties will mobilize the troops.
There you go. Anyway, this was let's just wrap up Woodstock. This is the planned agenda program that never came about. It's a mix of the oldies, Santana and so forth, and a lot of the new ones. Quite frankly, this is not appealing to me. I would stay home. But it fell through. But this is an interesting thing. I ran into this. This was June 21st, 2018, that the archaeologists were digging up at the site yeah, to catalog stuff. Yeah, Indiana Jones and the Jimi Hendrix guitar pick.
Yeah.
It's Binghamton University's public archaeology facility on Woodstock's 50th anniversary. Okay, here are some things that happened. We've talked about 69 escalation, the My Lai Wat massacre. I've been to that site, by the way, in Vietnam. It's a very nice museum there. Introduction of the first ATM machine. Elvis Presley begins his last Las Vegas era. Hurricane Camille was one of the worst in history. The Chicago 8 trial, Abby Hoffman, Jerry Rubin. Abbey Road, the last Beatles album, was released in September. Woodstock Memories online blog. Okay, I'm not going to play any more of this. This is how Woodstock may be remembered from Woodstock Memories. It's an online blog. And then you've already heard Walter Cronkite, but the three media responses, in my opinion, Walter Cronkite's, you heard most of it, was pretty balanced. The NBC was fair, and the locals' reaction on the ABC one was that it was good. So next week we're going to be talking about the free concert at Altamont Speedway, and what I want to do is go over the homework.
Can I just ask you, while you're looking for that, do you think that you would have chosen differently in your own life if you hadn't gone to Woodstock? When you just shared with us what a mediator, you did this and that, and whatever. Do you think, since you were there, did that really shape you for where you were going next?
You're catching me. I don't think at that time I said this is I'm being baptized in a new religion.
No, but I'm saying as you look back on that and where you are and how you evolved to that time.
Right. See, in addition to that, my gang in Boston, we were all like the people at Woodstock, taking care of each other and sharing. And we weren't really a commune. I mean, I had a daughter and a wife to take care of, but we considered ourselves in the alternate category, not full blown hippies like you saw Timothy Leary saying tune in, turn and drop out. No, I was a professional. I mean, I did drugs on weekends.
Apartment.
Yeah.
But so you had but you're talking about community.
Right.
As opposed to a community that lives in the same thing, that y'all were community and yet you
Right.
supported each other.
Right.
Had similar ideas, views,
Yeah.
even though you had jobs.
Never argued politics. We just knew, how we felt about it. Laurie, I need to, oh, wait a minute. I think I can do it. I want to go over, okay. So this, I'm okay. I found, I got, yeah, there we go. This is the one that Laurie sent you last week, and I just wanted to go over it because there are some documentaries in it, the whole Summer of Love thing. These flashback 67 is the timeline. I told you I don't want to spend time in the class on that, but if you want to know what's going on, I've got Monterey Pop, 40 years on, and some of the acts. There's a documentary on Janis Joplin, and the Complete Monterey Festival Part 1, and then as you can click the rest of them. It's on a link. And here is the complete playlist in the order they started. So they started with the association and ended up with Scott McKenzie. So that was that one. Now here's what you're going to get. Session 2. Okay, this is going to be, so it's 141 episodes of the collection that I told you about. Some of it's professional, some of it's amateur, but if you've got a favorite artist you want to see, or you want to interviews and so forth, it's a compendium, and I was lucky to find it. Woodstock, the Lost Performances, some 80 audio, some only audio, some video. Media reports, these are the 3 that I told you that I wasn't going to do. If you want to watch them, there they are. ABC, CBS, NBC. On the litigation. The Dick Cavett Show. This is an interesting interview with Joni Mitchell, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, and the Jefferson Airplane. And Joni Mitchell was supposed to go to Woodstock, but she didn't want to miss her chance to be on the Cavett Show. And I'm a big fan of Dick Cavett. I think he was one of the best who ever, he knew how to interview and make people comfortable and so forth. His interview of John Lennon and Yoko Ono is a must-watch kind of thing. But anyway, she appeared on it, and top 5 rockin' things about Woodstock, that's mojo.com. Oh, this is a Daily Journal article of at Woodstock, Woodstock Diaries. National Lampoon Lemmings. Is anyone familiar with Lemmings? It was before, it was Saturday Night Live people before they were Saturday Night Live. And I've got the video here for you if you want to watch it. It's a takeoff on Woodstock where people are going to kill themselves. They're going to be mass suicide. But it's got the various, some of the songs in it. John Belushi's rendering of Joe Cocker's. Oh, it's priceless. He's spastic. And it was supposed to be on television, but HBO canceled it and decided not to air it. So Belushi at Joe Cocker at 45 minutes is worth it. Woodstock 40 years later, that's that one I showed you. Joni Mitchell singing Woodstock right after the concert because she wrote it. And then these 68, 67 memories, 69 flashback and so forth. And here's the Woodstock playlist with the times they started and ended. You can get the whole thing. This gives you a good idea. Okay, any questions about anything? Thank you, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.